Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us for Converge 2024, the RoboHead User Conference. Welcome to our session on RoboHead notifications. Did you get that thing I sent you? My name is Eric Fredrickson. I'm a member of our technical support team here at Aquid Cloud, and today we're going to talk about email notifications. It all begins with email. Email is foundational to the internet. Even as we find new ways to connect with our work teams, friends, and family, email is still a major part of communication between different departments and organizations. So, what will we cover today? We'll talk about how to manage your notifications, understanding where notifications originate, and what to do when notifications don't show up. We also have a handout on the sidebar for some useful notifications for different roles, as well as a flowchart for troubleshooting what to do when emails don't show up. First, let's look at some useful places to remember when modifying or investigating RoboHead notifications. First, there's your Manage My Notification screen. Here you can select from a variety of different events and select the right scope and notification method to fit your needs. Next is the Email History tab of your profile. Click on your profile in the top of RoboHead, click on View My Profile, and then click the Emails tab. And here you'll find a list of pretty much every email that we've sent you, and they'll all be here regardless of whether maybe you deleted it from your email or whatever, it'll be here. And finally, there's your mentions inbox. Anytime someone mentions you, whether it's in a note or in a review annotation, it'll be here. So RoboHead notifications, where do they come from? How do we manage them? There are a number of different events that can trigger RoboHead notifications. Some of them are hard-coded. Some are ones that you've configured. Some will come from users mentioning you in an annotation or note, or it could come from a review that someone set up, including you. There's also a scheduled report and form rules. Of those, there are some that always send, and these send regardless of user type or notification setup. So that includes scheduled reports, review alerts, request alerts. That would be, you've created a request and the request approver wants to hear back on, wants some more information. Then there's rule-based notifications, and finally, mentions. So how do you ensure that notifications send? Well, user notification preferences are individual to that user, so you can't force a user to have a given preference set up. So in that case, then you want to be 100% sure that someone received a notification, then you'll want to mention them. Mentions always send email and always appear in the user's mentions inbox. It is important to remember that permissions apply here. If a user doesn't appear in your mention list when creating a note, it means they don't have permission to view that item. So you'll want to talk to your manager or update the project to reflect that. So let's talk about setting up your notifications. When you go to set up notifications, it can be tempting to just check immediate email for everything as you go down the list. But really, that's just a good way to bury yourself in an avalanche of email. The best notification frequency for you is going to be the one that you won't ignore. When we get too many emails, it can be tempting to start ignoring them. So you want to pick the right frequency for the right notification type. So you might want an immediate email for something you need to know about now. So a review's been completed by all reviewers, and you are the lead designer on that project. Or a request was created and you are one of the approvers on the request team. There's other notifications that are more about keeping up with your work. Think of it as a checklist for what you're going to do today. So that might be tasks that are overdue, reviews that are due today, things like that. And then there's workload updates, things that you need to stay abreast of, but that you don't want to get a notification about every day or right away. So that might be projects overdue, projects archived, things like that. And lastly, there's the activity stream. These don't actually create an email. It's more for a quick glance at your dashboard And so you'll head to your dashboard, look at recent activity, and that's where you'll find these. So again, we do have a handout in the sidebar. What we've done is gone through and imagined some different roles that your team might have. The team member who just works on tasks, the manager who manages a bunch of projects, designer, things like that, and suggested some different notification types for those roles. On the other side of that, we have a guide for investigating missing notifications. So, what do you do when notifications don't arrive? Well, the first thing you want to do is go to your email history tab. You look there, see if the notification's present. If it isn't, that means the message was never created. So there's a few things you'll want to check. The first thing to check is your notification setup. So maybe you have a notification set up for when someone adds a note to a project, but in this case, the user added a note to a task. So notification wouldn't send in that case. Or maybe you have a notification set up for just projects you manage. In that case, you're going to want to check the permissions on that project. If you're a contributor rather than a managed user, that notification won't send. So you'll want to update your preferences or update your permissions. And finally, you want to check with the person who created the notification to make sure that they actually, triggered the event that created it or that should have created it. If it still seems like it should have sent, then contact us. Contact RoboHead support. In that case, we'll work with you to investigate and understand why that notification didn't send. So we'll go through each of those steps with you. We'll get specifics about when the notification should have sent, what object it should have been triggered by, things like that. So what if the notification is in your email history tab? That means we tried to send the message to you. As far as the RoboHead system is concerned, that message was correctly triggered. You had the notification preference set up correctly. The user mentioned you correctly. So that stuff is all fine. So now we have to go outside of RoboHead. Email clients, especially modern ones, have gotten pretty good at getting emails that we don't want to see out of our faces. Junk mail or promotions, things like that. And so once in a while, an email that you care about can get caught up in those filters. So you'll want to check your junk and quarantine folders to start with. Next, you'll want to check your email filters that you've set up. Sometimes those filters can be a little too broad, or maybe a notification just happened to have exactly the right wording and it ended up in a different folder. Now, if you still can't find it, again, contact RoboHead support. So the first thing we'll do is we'll make sure that the message was actually sent. So we'll check your email history tab just to be sure, but we'll also check our server and make sure that the server matches up with what we're seeing in that history tab. So now when an email sends, the receiving server can do one of two things. It can accept the message or it can reject it. In either case, it sends a message back to our server to tell us what it did with it. So if we look and see that it accepted it, then that's when we'll want to loop in your IT team and ask them where that message ended up. Now, if we see that it was rejected, then we can see that as well, and then we can give you some suggestions on what might be happening there. And again, you will probably have to loop in your IT team at that time because we can't force a server to accept one of our messages. We can just explain, maybe why the server told us it was rejected. So now you know where notifications come from and how to find them. And so if you have any questions that we couldn't get to today, please do not hesitate to reach out to RoboHead support. You can reach out via chat, email, or phone, and make sure to check out our other presentations. And thanks again for coming to Converge 2024.